Okay.
Hello.
All right. Half a day, Guam. Welcome to another episode of the Guam Guy Show. And today we're going to be talking about deep sea mining. And I'm have a guest who is maybe not an expert in underwater sciences, but is nonetheless quite in the field and is quite connected with people who absolutely know what they're talking about. I'm joined with Angelo Villagomez. Maybe you can give us a little bit of your background and history. And while you're thinking about that, just shout out, thanks for doing this. We've had a couple opportunities to meet, both on Guam and in DC, and maybe we can talk about a little bit. But yeah, who you are, where you're from, and who you work for, all that good stuff.
Yeah, you were in town for your little film, and we went for a walk to Teddy Roosevelt Park, and you met my friend's dog because I was babysitting my friend's dog. I was dog sitting that week. But yeah, my name is Angelo Villagomez. I was born on the island of Guam, but my family's from Saipan. My dad is Ramon Garrido Villagomez. He was one of the signers of the CNMI Constitution.
Oh,
He was a Supreme Court justice. Sadly, he passed away many years ago. But I left the islands about 15 years ago. Almost it'll be 16 years soon. And I've lived in Washington D.C. For the last 15 years, and I am a professional ocean advocate. I went to school 25 years ago, and I have a degree in biology, and I have a degree in environmental policy. And based in DC, I've worked in about 25 different countries, passing laws to protect sharks, create marine protected areas. I've worked at international treaties like CITES, the Tuna Treaty in the Pacific called WCPFC. But these days, I work at an organization called the Center for American Progress. It is one of the leading think tanks in Washington, D.C. And I'm the senior fellow for Indigenous led conservation. And that's what I was hired to do.
mm.
So I came on during the Biden administration. And at the time, Deb Haaland was the Secretary of Interior. She was the first Native American secretary at all in the entire country, never mind Secretary of Interior. And she had some amazing programs working with tribes, improving relations with indigenous groups all across the US. Um, and that was my main focus. But for the last 2.5 years, I've also been the oceans director, and I lead the oceans program for Center for American Progress. And during the Biden years, we were very focused on national marine sanctuaries, which is a type of protected area. And then there's also these marine national monuments, like the Mariana Trench Marine National Monument. And they kind of languished in limbo for many years. Like there was no management plan, there wasn't a lot of staff. And during the Biden years, we were able to work with them to get some money moving and get those management plans in place. So, you look at the Mariana Trench now, and we've got Ranger Jihan and Superintendent Sean McDuff on Saipan. They got a management plan. So it took 15 years longer than it should have. But it's done. I mean, it's moving. Like there's active management now. There's staff. They're doing work in the community. And then we got a new president. And back at home on Guam and Saipan, we tend to think of just the federal government. But the person who's in charge, whether it's in the Congress or the presidency, actually has a lot of influence about the things that are done. And this current president is very interested in selling off natural resources all across the country, and that's why I'm talking to you today about deep sea mining.
hmm Okay, well, this isn't a quite a very political show, but we're having
Sure.
real manifestations of it anyway. If we can stay more on that side of things, that'd be
Sure, sure, sure.
that'd be cool. So yeah, so first let me I guess apologize a little. I don't think I introduced you all because that yeah, I didn't even know all that about you. So you're a lot more steeped in everything than I would have thought. And you said your bachelor's was it marine science or some kind of science?
Funny enough, I never actually took marine biology.
Uh-huh.
Most of my classes were terrestrial.
Uh-huh.
When I moved back to Saipan after college, my first job was working on a coral reef outreach program.
Hmm.
So I've been, we're surrounded by waters. So as soon as I got home, I was working on ocean issues, even though my scientific background was trees.
Okay. All right, cool. So I guess back to the impetus of things, where it seems like everything is happening all of a sudden. Like if you Google like deep sea mining, you'll see things going back, years and years. I guess almost a decade now. I think I saw something from 2016, and it was just kind of a conversation. And there's been several changes since then, like the advent of artificial intelligence. There's some technological improvements. But it just seems like everyone and their moms are kind of are just screaming about this. Like there's some kind of urgency to it. And so, what's this? What's the urgency? What's causing that urgency, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, I think it's probably that it's that combination of massive increases in data centers and needs for the minerals that are in the sea, the graphite, the cobalt, the nickel, and whatnot. And just knowing that right now China controls about 80% of the market, and they control most of the what's it called, the refining of the minerals, right? Because like you dig up the rocks, and then you got to send the rocks somewhere, and then they turn those rocks into metals. That's
Hmm.
mostly done in China, and it's a concern both for the renewable energy um, industry, like the just transition, because in order to get off of fossil fuels, you're going to need all this stuff like windmills and solar panels and batteries. But it's also of great interest to the military because they need these things for their weapons. And there was an article out in Financial Times this week about how the U.S. military is already starting to stockpile some of these minerals in preparation for things that may be coming down the road.
How is the military going to use like raw minerals?
That's a great question. And I'm not the person to ask it. I just read the article that said that they are doing it.
Okay.
Like I guess, and again, I've been told like don't speak when you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. No.
But there are weapons companies who make these things on behalf of the U.S. government. So my assumption would be that the military is obtaining these minerals and then providing them to the companies that are making the weapons.
Okay. Yeah, there's been stranger claims and realities made than that for sure. So, it's a little hard for me to make the connection at first, but absolutely. I'll take you at your word for that. Um, so
And
for
you can drop it in the chat for,
oh,
for listeners later.
oh, okay. Yeah. So let's maybe we can just define really quickly because we keep talking about deep sea mining but there's different forms of it. Some absolutely or presumably more destructive than others. And then
Right.
yeah, so maybe I'll try to summarize because I did try to do a little
Okay.
bit of research
All
and
right.
then correct me where I'm wrong or expand
Okay. That sounds
where you
good.
feel.
Sounds good.
All right. So one, and it's the one that I'm most open to. That said, I can, my mind can be changed with good reason and evidence. So there's one where it's basically scooping rocks off the bottom, and then the other kinds is either like bulldozing, scraping stuff off the sea floor, or scraping the tops off of sea mounts. And depends on what you're going for is where you expect to find those better. So there's kind of three categories. Again, scooping rocks off the bottom, bulldozing the seafloor, or bulldozing the top of seamount. So that first one, there's a company. He had as of this recording, recently had an interview with Saipan or NMI news station or radio show. I'm not sure quite which. I think it was a news station.
It was
Uh,
NMI News Service.
yeah, thank
It
you.
was an
And
interview with Brad Rosala.
yeah, thank you. And the CEO came on, and of CEO of is it Impossible Metals? Was that what it was called?
Yep. Mhm.
Impossible Metals. And he had a great kind of talk and presentation, but it's quite easy to listen to a CEO or salesman sell
Yep.
their product or services. But that said, I left that interview open-minded, and the premise in that case is that first type where you're scooping rocks off the bottom. And so if you look at like the abyssal plains and the seafloor, you're going to see these little rocks down there, and a better word for them is nodules. And in that, you have
Yep.
these metals that they're trying to get, and for refining and processing and so on. And
Yep.
so you could go with a bulldozer approach, or they have a more subtle approach. So they invented these untethered underwater drones with AI. They go down to
Or
the.
they're going to invent. They're going to
They're
invent.
going to that. Okay, thank you. So it's
Yes,
not
that's what
really.
that's the it's the, none of this is like that's the thing that people need to understand is that there's been no like there have been sort of like tests to attempt to mine the deep sea. Like there was some tests off the coast of South Carolina about 50 years ago. Still hasn't recovered, by the way.
Hmm.
And like there are the area that the whole world wants to mine is the area between Hawaii and California. It's called the Clarion Clipperton Zone. Like that's where that's the place where everybody wants to go.
Hmm.
Um, but anyways, continue.
Sorry. Okay. And so yeah, these polymetallic nodules, I think is the more
Yeah.
accurate term for them. And the proposed technology where you have these basically underwater drones that are not tethered to the ship, so the ship doesn't have to like actively stay there. And using AI, they would basically just pick the nodules, the little rocks off of the bottom of the seafloor, load them up, and then when the drone, we'll call it, is full, it shoots back up to the surface, and then the ship has a tether, a cable tether that would go down and connect with the drone and then haul it back up. So that sounds like if you were going to do something, absolutely the minimally destructive way to do it or disturbing way to do it. That said, is the proposal better than the potential realities? Second form is you basically go down with some kind of bulldozer or heavy equipment and you're scraping. I don't know how deep, but you're like just scraping the seafloor up and trying to get stuff out of it. Um, and
Yeah, you guys think of it as like the way the minerals get on the seafloor is they sort of like settle out, and then
Mhm,
basically like the seabed turns into the minerals. So like you're basically just literally ripping up the seafloor because
mhm.
that's where the minerals are.
Okay.
But that type is not actually being proposed. I think what they are proposing is the nodules, and then I'll just discuss the third type really quick, which is
Okay.
going after those like the sea vents that you see, like with the
Sorry.
like the hot water shooting out of the
Is it
bottom.
is it the vents or the mounts? Because I thought mounts were like basically underwater mountains. Or
The yes, but the for the sea mounts, it's the crust on the sea mounts.
oh,
That's
okay.
kind of like the ripping up of the crust.
Okay.
But they also want to go after these sea vents. But you are right. The one that they probably want to do here is going after those nodules, which is like those potato sized things. And they just it sounds, you know, if it is as environmentally friendly as that, maybe it isn't so bad. But you know, the proof will be in the pudding about whether or not this is really going to happen. And our islands have no shortage of salesmen coming to the islands and trying to sell us stuff. Like on Saipan, um, the price of the casino that they started building about 10 years ago
Whew.
ballooned from about $1 billion to 7 billion. So no billion, yeah, $7 billion that they promised that they were going to insert into the local economy. And I looked up some of those numbers, and like Hong Kong Disneyland cost $3 billion. And sometimes like our people just don't know what these numbers mean. And so when people promise these big numbers and you don't check them, sometimes you can get excited and be more willing to listen to them because you start having dreams about this lottery that you're about to win with these big dollar amounts. So um, if it is as environmentally safe as he's saying, like that's great. Can we see the actual machines? Could we? Is there anywhere where this has been tested? And the thing that I am afraid of is that he wants to test it on us, right? Uh, and the deep sea ecologists that I've spoken to have said that the place where these nodules exist is the Clarion Clipperton zone. Like that's the prize. But these startup companies, and this guy is very much a startup company, they need proof of concept so that they can get other investors to give them money. And my concern is that they are going to the far edges of the American empire during a time when we have the people in charge of the government right now don't care as much about environmental protections as they have in years past. Hopefully that was not too political,
It's okay. It's okay.
but like that's kind of the reality right now. And he wants to come test out his machines and see what works and see what's wrong. And there's just no shortage of uh, the Pacific Islands being used as a testing ground for horrible things. The worst, of course, is the nuclear testing from the 1940s and 1950s. And these are not nuclear weapons, but the threat is there that they will do permanent damage to large swaths of ecosystems that are underwater that we haven't even seen yet. We're going to lose things before we even know what's down there. So like um, the threat is like the threat of the unknown, and you know, not a lot of trust is being built right now, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Right. It's not like this guy did go to American Samoa before everything happened, and the where it landed was everybody in American Samoa is against what he's trying to do. So like before we buy into it, we should listen to our what our brothers and sisters in American Samoa are thinking, because he was telling them the same thing. Um, and that's kind of where we're at.
Hmm.
So we've got this comment period where we have an opportunity to raise some of these questions, and it's a really compressed timeline, and it's really unfortunate that for folks who didn't even know what deep sea mining was 45 days ago, suddenly we have to become experts on the topic and provide comments to the federal government that are substantive, lest they be thrown away um, by the contractor that they've hired to go through all the comments.
Okay. So, man, there's just so many ways we can take this. We can circle all around to them, but let me just pick one. So, you're worried that they're gonna use just us as a testing ground, right? So, just let's just devil's advocate. Why not be the testing ground? Why not be potential leaders in this field and maybe stake our claim and grow the future if it turns out to be good? So what would your if it was going to be done here, what would your ideal situation be like?
Um, yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I think of this not just for deep sea mining.
Hmm.
Think of this for everything. Uh, and I think of all of the critical habitats that have been commented on the last couple of years: the turtles, the
Uh-huh.
clams, the corals, all the things that the military is doing. And like the bigger issue here is, and I'll get to the answer eventually, but the bigger issue here is that people from off the island are making decisions about what the island should be doing.
Mm.
And what we you know what we were the place where we want to be is the island is painting that vision and going to the federal government and saying, actually, federal government, this is what we want to have happen. And it's a combination of fishing and maybe mining, but also environmental protection. But it comes from us, and it's our ideas, and it's explained in our context, and that just doesn't happen.
Uh-huh.
And like and again, Guam and CNMI are very different. Um, but who has the job? Who has the federal jobs in Guam that are the connectors for the people who the federal employees on Guam who are representing these agencies back in DC. Many of them are locals. A lot of times on Saipan they're not. I know it's a little bit different on Guam, but uh, how do we flip this dynamic on its head? And I know there's so much great work. Like I watch your videos and I see the stuff that Guam Green Growth is doing. Like people definitely have a vision, but how do we communicate that vision for the whole issue, for the whole ocean, and change what NOAA is doing and BOEM and Interior and EPA? Um, Mining is coming, right? Like that's the thing. Like mining is going to happen.
Hmm.
Um, the great thing about these minerals is they're not fish. They don't swim, right?
Uh-huh.
If those rocks are there, they've been there for the last 10 million years. Unless we do something about it, they're going to be there for the next 10 million years. So uh, we do have some time to get this right. And when you think of other places around the US where there's natural resource extraction near rural communities or marginalized communities, you put in place things like community benefits agreements. Can we talk about that? Right?
I've never even
If
heard that term.
look it up. If we are going to be a place where we are supplying these minerals, um, can we be also at the same time be a test case to replace our diesel generators? Can you is there what are the technologies that can be built on the island to reduce the price of electricity? And the reason why you need those minerals is to reduce the price of electricity and to get us off of gas and oil. So can we have that conversation at the same time? And it's not like it's I'll be honest, like this is sometimes the experience with the military. It's like, this piece, this little piece, that little piece. But
Hmm.
there's like a bigger picture out there of how is our island going to be sustainable? How are we going to feed ourselves? How are we going to keep the schools open and get everybody paid? And when agencies come in and have these crazy ideas that were cooked up by some tech bro, it just causes chaos, right? And it's created so much conflict in the community, and like people are mad and people are angry and they're upset, and it's just not helpful.
Hmm.
But I do see mining is coming, and one of the great things is we are smart, sentient people with all of the science at our fingertips. We've got these phones where we can connect with people all across the world and get expertise to our islands. So can they help us figure out ways that we can do this in a way that benefits the community, is supported by the community, doesn't destroy our ocean permanently? And the answer is there probably is a there, but we're not going to get that answer by January 12th.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's the problem, is it's going too fast, it's being rushed, it's being secretive, and that's just, it's unethical.
And this is
It's wrong.
with a 1 month extension. It was
Yeah, it's
originally,
outrageous.
yeah, yeah. It was due days ago, and only give a 30-day extension instead of a 90-day extension
And like
or
not,
whatever
not only
else.
that, it started during a government shutdown.
Hmm.
Come on, like they weren't even open, and they put this thing out, and then it went over Thanksgiving, and now it's going over Christmas, and it's going to go over New Year, straight through Little Christmas on January 6th. And like, man, like the reason I'm recording this at 11 o'clock at night because I was at a Christmas party with friends and we were celebrating, and that's what everybody on the island is doing right now. They're doing, they're going to fiestas, they're going to church. They don't need to be commenting on deep sea mining right now with a deadline of January 12th.
Hmm. Okay. So maybe just get
I got a
back
little
to
heated.
yeah, maybe get back to the yeah, maybe get back to the question I kind of started this with was like, why not have us be the first and, participate in the pioneering of this if it turns out to be amazing. You acknowledge it is deep sea mining is coming, right? Or almost certainly is coming. And if we can get like a first mover advantage, um, but yeah, wouldn't that be a good thing? And I guess
Yeah, the reality is we probably won't, because the number one thing that's going to drive where deep sea mining happens is where the minerals are. And like I've kind of already pointed out that the Clarion Clipperton Zone and the high seas is like that's the gold mine. The deep sea ecologists that I've spoken to say that the nodule fields in the area that's been identified, there are nodules there. Like they exist, but they don't exist in the magnitude where they would be commercially valuable. And again,
um,
the deep sea ecologists that I've spoken to think that this is more about testing equipment to get proof of concept so that the tech bro can go get venture capitalists to come in and invest in his company so that his company um, can mine in these other places. And this deep sea mining stuff, like it is international relations, right? It's being discussed at the United Nations. China wants to do it. Russia wants to do it. And the US is kind of an outlier, like a little bit of a maverick when it comes to international relations. And we're actually not a party of the treaty that is trying to manage these minerals on the high seas, the International Seabed Authority. And for like the last 20 years, they've been trying to hammer out an agreement among all of the world's nations on exactly what we were just talking about. Like, what are the ethical, sustainable ways to get to a place where we can allow deep sea mining in the high seas? And the US is being a little bit of a maverick right now and is talking about giving out licenses to American companies to do this on the high seas. And lawyers will say it's illegal because it's not a part of the ISA, but it's you know Americans might just say, well, we didn't sign that treaty, so we don't have to listen to what you have to say.
Mm.
And then what happens if the Americans step out of line? What are the Chinese going to do, right? What are the Russians going to do? So it's not just minerals; it's also the tensions between these world powers, and how their economies are working together. And I'm not an economist, but how they're working together to get these things that they need to make their economies run.
Mm.
And the threat is that like all of this blows up, and a lot of the good work that was done in the last 20 years gets thrown out the window. And that's separate from this issue though. Like the U.S. can probably it's the U.S. waters, right? So they can there's no one can tell the U.S. what to do in their own waters.
Yeah. Okay. And
Um,
I think the best answer in that was something you said early on in it, and it was that, like we're not even the sweet spot. So even if they have a successful test, then they're just gone. And like we don't, yeah. So some members of the business community here and or people like us talking heads on the radio or internet or whatever are like, hey, tourism's not doing good. We need some other kinds of, economic ways to diversify and have more income. So why not do this? If they hire a few handful of people from here, that's a handful more jobs we didn't have before. But if it's just for testing, then any gain or any benefit would be very short term,
yeah,
and any potential damage could be forever. And I don't think
yeah,
that's an exaggeration. Like some of these
yeah,
particles are so fine they can stay suspended in the, not all of it for sure, but some of it
yeah,
at least will can stay suspended up in the water for however long.
yeah.
Okay, so um, could you
Yeah,
could
you also want it to be durable too, right? I mean, again, I talked a little bit about the changing priorities in Washington, D.C., depending on who's in charge. And if Guam and Marianas want to have deep sea mining, you have to ensure that it continues in 3 years. And if it's done wrong, the next president will come in and do what Trump did to USAID, or what he did with Doge, right? Just kind of come in and kill those programs. So this is why I think like it's worth taking the time.
yeah.
It's worth spending a little bit more time and understanding the issue. There really is no rush. They're not swimming away, right? The rocks are going to be there. And it's also worth just knowing a lot of other countries have been looking into this over the years. Uh, and a couple are very supportive, right? But others are very against it. And I think it's our right as a people to have that conversation among ourselves, and as reasonable people, come up with our own position on this. And we just haven't had that opportunity yet. And I think we deserve that opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most powerful thing you said is like, whatever happens, happens, but we should be the ones saying what should and shouldn't happen and so on. So yeah, it's you're very consistent with that. I've heard you say that over the years a couple of times, and
Yeah,
it always escapes me. Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, like like one of the big problems with just being from a territory is too many of the decisions in our lives are made for us. And I'm a part of this group, Right to Democracy, and I think we're all in this different moments in our decolonization journey.
Hmm.
And I think this idea that we should have more control over our own lives and our own islands and ability to feed ourselves, as it's like it's a human right. And I think on our islands, we were having these conversations more and more. And we've got some amazing local lawyers now, and some amazing local scholars, and some amazing local artists and writers who are helping us to process these ideas and figure out what we think. And it's a great time to be alive.
Hmm. Um, there's something we didn't talk about yet, and we didn't really go into the biology and
Uh,
too much of this. So I did watch. I think I went into someone's webinar. It was quite. It was almost difficult to follow, even though I consider myself fairly scientifically literate.
yep.
Now these nodules, these rocks, basically, have life growing on them. Would you happen to know? Do all of them have living things on them, or just some of them, or?
Once upon a time, scientists thought that the deep sea was just too intense of a place for life to exist. Yet, the deeper we go, the deeper our machines go into the ocean, the more life we keep finding. And life, it's we're learning new things about what life can be. Because in order to live with that kind of pressure, you just have to be a very different type of creature. And so all like, yes, there's life down there, and there's lots of it, and it's also very different from the stuff that we have up here. And honestly, like one of the best things about all of these amazing creatures is just a greater understanding of what the world is and what life is, and just how life survives. Um, but there are, the life exists from the microbial level up into the, vertebrates with sharks. And if you've seen the movie Meg,
I have not.
oh, you have not. It's also a book. Um,
Is that the
According
Jason
to
Statham?
yeah, Jason, yeah, Jason.
Okay.
Now this is fiction. This isn't real. If listeners, I'm joking right now.
Okay.
But in the movie and in the book, there's like a temperature gradient, and Megalodon has been hiding in the Mariana Trench for all of these years. Did you see the movie Pacific Rim?
Yes, I love that movie.
Another Mariana Trench reference. The Mariana Trench is also home to an interdimensional portal where that leads us to the home of the kaiju,
Uh-huh.
which are these giant monsters which will attack our cities. Uh, so the Mariana Trench is a pretty special place. But like I'm joking. I'm joking a lot.
Yeah.
But the Mariana Trench is like one of the most iconic places on the planet. It's right up there with Mount Everest and Grand Canyon. And we imagine these robots and these monsters and these giant sharks that live down there. Um, but when our cameras go down there, the stuff that they see is actually weirder than anything that we could ever imagine. And every single time the cameras go down there, they find more weird stuff. And it's weirder than anything else we've ever seen. Um, and it would just be a shame to lose that. And we would lose a part of ourselves, right? That wonder of discovering new things. I mean, that you're a scientist, right? It's discovering new things is what we're all about. Yeah, it's like that is the worst case scenario. Is we lose um our imagination.
Yeah, so like if you don't know any better, or maybe even to some people, even if they do, it sounds like a sweet deal. It's like, all right, we're gonna go to the bottom of the ocean. Light never hits there. No one ever goes there. Like, who cares, if we take these rocks and maybe if there's something living on them or not. And if the economic benefit is there, then yeah, it sounds like a sweet deal to me, kind of approach, right? But so my if you do know better, or if you're just skeptical like me, I have these
Yeah.
suspicions like, okay, how much can we take? Are they filling some ecological role or stability to the benthos, to the seafloor? And is can you disturb it enough where there's some kind of tipping point that happens where things get out of whack and there's kind of cascading negative effects? And this is me going all the way to the other end, the deep end. Was that a pun? If it was, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is me going all the way to one end of the spectrum. And have you heard of any kind of potential from your deep sea ecologist friends and colleagues where this could become what's the worst that could happen? Yeah.
There was a study that was just done on a mining test. I think it was in Clarion and Clipperton,
Did you say mining?
where the
Yeah.
mining, yeah,
Okay.
deep sea
Okay.
mining. Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
mining test, and they found that right after mining, a third of the animals were gone. So it's uh, like so in that particular test, they lost a third of the biodiversity. So the great threat is we lose these ecosystems, and we don't have them anymore for us to discover and think that they're awesome.
Hmm.
And it's also, I'm just thinking about, you describing how environmentally safe some of this mining is. Mining on land, like there's no good examples where that has gone well. And the in the U.S. West, tribal lands are just littered with the detritus of uranium mining. And people, have cancer now, and their lands and their waters are poisoned from this uranium mining. So we actually don't need to look too far back in the past to see what is the worst that could happen. Is like I would look at uranium mining, and it's not just the damage. I grew up on Saipan, and when I would go play in the jungle, there were still bombs on the ground. Right? It took them. They've cleaned some of them up, but even like last week, they found munitions and they were blowing them up on the north end of the island. Mining is the same thing. Like they're going to leave their junk everywhere, and like not only are they going to destroy the ecosystems with whatever that they're going to do, they're also going to leave all their trash, and that's could be sitting at the bottom of the ocean or on our docks. And I think we have experience with this on Saipan. It's a casino.
Hmm.
Uh, I, you know, I, this is actually the first time I've spoken about deep sea mining publicly.
Hmm.
Usually, I talk about marine protected areas and fisheries. I'm one of the advisors to the U.S. government on tuna in the Pacific, um, along with couple of folks from Saipan and Guam. And uh, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. This is I did not work on deep sea mining 6 months ago. And when it popped up in American Samoa, the way I got involved in that is some of the folks reached out to Right to Democracy and said, "Hey, we need some help with this thing. We don't know what's going on." Similar to what Guam is and CNMI are going through. And what we ended up doing was a petition for people from the territories to say that this shouldn't go through unless there is consent from the local people. It's kind of like what I was talking about. It's like they're leaving the opening for this might be something that works, but it has to be on our terms. And for the American Samoa stuff, like that was it. Like that we kind of we had this like very specific bite-sized piece that we were focusing on. There was a whole larger campaign of on the ground. There were public meetings and town halls, and then the national groups had petitions and letters, and scientists and lawyers were writing all kinds of letters. But I wasn't like paying all that close attention. I was just the thing I care about is it should be on our terms, and the territories. Our voices often get drowned out in these
Yeah.
national conversations, and so like that petition was important for me. And we ended up getting 3,000 people to sign it. And
Wow.
just in territories. And about 900 were from Guam, and I think about 500 were from CNMI, with most of them being from American Samoa. And when this popped up, my initial concerns were similar. It was like, like my main concern with this is that it should be on our terms. And I'm a board member with the Friends of the Mariana Trench. It's an NGO that I helped found on Saipan. almost 20 years ago, and they're still very active on the island. And our chair, Sheila Babauta, was very strong, wanting to stand against this. As a board, we had a discussion about what did we want to do. We were kind of a little worried about um, getting too political, because that can be dangerous. But Sheila really convinced us that we needed to stand up and speak out about this. And so I'm in, like, I'm all in. And I'm actually learning. Like it's this. 30 days ago, I knew hardly anything, but now I've been reading scientific papers. I watched the same videos that you watched, and talking to people and asking people what they want. And I just appreciated this conversation because I was actually thinking the entire time that we were talking. I didn't come with a lot of prepared talking points, and
Doesn't
you
sound
it,
that
yeah, and you didn't provide me any questions in advance. You were just like, "Hey, Angelo, I got this show. Can
way.
you talk to me?" And I just said yes. And I honestly, like, I was like, "Yeah, sure." Like, I'm just having a conversation with you, like we're at the a picnic table by the beach. And even in this conversation that I've had with you, like my mind has kind of been churning, and hearing the things, kind of the way that you asked your questions, like, oh, that's really interesting.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to appreciate that, and thank you for the chance to like even just talking to you and thinking about this, I'm getting something out of this, and may think about this slightly different tomorrow.
Hmm. So yeah, like and right back at you. So the all the talks I've heard so far kind of talk about just they focus on the technology, which is fine, or they focus on the potential environmental or ecological damage, which is very important and crucial. But you're the first I've heard say, whatever happens, we should be the ones, that has the most, weighted feedback. Like whatever we say is our decision as a people to allow things to happen or not allow things to happen, or at least or control or at least suggest, like how limited the process should be. I'm sorry, the experimental phase should be, and how we want things happening in our waters. Because I took an oceanography class, so shout out Dr. Dan Lindstrom, and these things, these rocks, I keep calling them rocks, but
Yeah,
they take what, millions of years to form.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you take one and we'll never see it again. It's not like
yeah,
you talked about regular mining on land. It's I don't know if it ever happens, but you can dig as deep and wide of a mine you want. But the technology that is there, if you could to fill it back up, you could recreate topsoil. You could plant a forest over it if you wanted. I don't know if that's ever happened, but in theory, you could do it if you had the will, then the political will to do it. But there's if this is just if the seafloor is destroyed or over harvested, then they're not coming back, not for
that's it.
generations and millions of years, because it took that long for them to form, and they're not going to, come back in that kind of, and then they
Yeah.
will come back in that kind of time scale. And
It's a
so,
one time taking.
yeah,
And I've been involved in conservation issues in Mariana and CNMI for 20 years. And a lot of it focused on the Northern Islands. And like I've been to Mog, I've been to Euracus, I've been all up and down the chain.
wow,
But for most Chamorros do not get to go to the Northern Islands in their lifetime ever.
yeah,
It's like very few of us, and it's a badge of honor to be able to go up there. Even still, people have extremely strong opinions about this, right? These are our islands. You know, don't give them to the federal government. Don't give them to the military, even if they've never seen them,
hmm,
because they're theirs, and they're us. And I'm a huge baseball fan, and I have baseball cards that I collected from when I was like 10. And I don't look at these baseball cards, but they are in a box in a closet, and they're my baseball cards. And like, I love baseball. And comparing the islands to baseball cards, it's not a one-to-one comparison.
uh,
But I would be really upset if somebody tried to take my baseball cards because they're
uh-huh.
mine. and they've been mine for a very long time, even if I don't look at them, even if I don't touch them. And so the same is true. Like I've seen some folks online in some of the mean comments, and they're like, "Oh, this area is 128 miles away. You don't even care about this area." I promise you, we care about this area. Like it's
Mhm.
our ocean. Like we care about our ocean. We care about every drop. And yeah, like you're saying, this is going to be permanent. So whatever happens, we're not just going to be living with it in 5 years. We're going to be living with it in 500 years.
Mhm.
So let's not mess this up. Let's be good ancestors and get this right.
Mhm.
And part of getting this right is to be careful and to make sure that we have the time. So I applaud the political leaders who are standing up and trying to slow this down and give our people a chance. And I encourage more leaders. I feel like that's
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
reasonable ask. Reasonable. It's saying, hey, we can have this conversation, but let's have this conversation on our terms because
Hmm.
we have to live with the outcomes, not you.
Hmm. Yeah. So shout out to
Reasonable.
elected leaders and so on. Like, that there's a part of the reason we're having this is because people have been raising the issues, and we're seeing our leaders like, hey, guys, let's slow down, or hey, guys, submit comments. Speaking of which,
Yeah.
what would you like people to do? Like, is there?
The best thing you can do is there are scientists and there are lawyers who are going to comment on this from the legal perspective. I know there's a group called DOSI who's looking at the underwater maps that they have, and they're doing a scientific letter that they're going to submit. There's a group called Environment America, and they're doing a science letter on like the biology, and they're going to submit that. And you might not be an expert on biology or the law, but you are an expert on your ocean, and you're an expert on what the ocean means to you. Um, and you may not think that it's important, um, but take the time. Like it's honestly like with your phone these days, like you can open up Chat GPT and like talk to Chat GPT for like 3 minutes and be like, hey, so I want to write a comment for the Federal Register. I want to talk about I go fishing, and this is the type of fishing that I do, and I'm concerned about where that spawn is coming from. My family is connected to the ocean. That's the kind of stuff that that's the kind of stuff that nobody in California has. That's the kind of stuff that's only the people on Guam are going to have. So you talk about who you are, talk about why the ocean is important to you, and talk about what you want to have happen. Right? I talked about community benefits agreements. What are like if you're making a deal, and this is like it's a request for information. So if you're making a deal, what are the kinds of things that you want for them to get your ocean, right? You want economic security. I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but like think of it that way.
You can suggest.
Yeah, yeah. And it's super easy. And and groups are out there. I know like Proteji Guahan has a document that has suggestions. Friends of the Marina Trench has a document that has suggestions. You can read some of that stuff, and if it speaks to you, you can put that in your comment. But it's super easy to do. You go to the Federal Register, you click submit a comment, a box opens up, you get like 2 or 3 thousand words. If you exceed the word limit, you can turn it into a Word document or a PDF and upload it. Um, there's also just there's a couple of petitions and letters. And if you don't want to sign if you don't want to do the public comment, you can find one of those petitions and sign the petition and at least get your name on board.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of
Um,
funny. Almost a oxymoron. You said like, "Oh, it's super easy to do. Go to the Federal Register." I'm
yeah.
like, usually you don't hear those things together, but I don't know. Maybe that is
Yeah.
easy to do. I'll put a link in the show notes. So
Yeah.
if you're wherever you're
But it's
watching
happening. A
or
thousand people have already commented, so
yeah,
people are doing it,
so yeah,
and
wherever
you
people
can
are.
read all the other comments that people have written.
Oh, you can read other comments. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
You can.
I'll have a link in the show notes in the caption or
Cool.
description for anybody that wants to go down these rabbit holes and speak your voice, like whether you're like you said, which is why part of the reason I wanted to talk to you, because I knew you'd have a different perspective, and one that includes the opinions and perspectives of all the people in your network that you've communicated with about this. So a very well-rounded conversation.
Thanks,
So
man.
thank you very much. Do you have any final thoughts or anything you wanted to finish that we didn't get to check off or to even touch on?
Yeah, like I just like closing words. Um, the federal government does not own the ocean. You own the ocean. And it's we like to talk about rights. It's
Hmm.
our my right to do this, my right to do that. Rights also come with responsibilities. And part of that responsibility is standing up for yourself and for your
Ooh,
family.
yeah.
And so, for your listeners, it's responsibility time. And, go out there. And again, like I know this is not the only thing. There's all these other things, and this is one of them. But it's important.
That man, you just hit a nail on the head with me. Like, we have people who will, literally sometimes scream indigenous rights. It's a very passionate topic, well, whether it's fishing or whatever else. And sometimes kind of people might, in my opinion, use that to too much effect. Well, indigenous rights doesn't mean you get to take all the fish you want, however you want, right? And we also need and often lack indigenous controls. Like we don't have chiefs to tell us, to stop
Yeah.
or when and what and how and so on. But that said, indigenous responsibility,
We
regardless.
also have indigenous
Yeah,
responsibilities.
regardless, yeah, that's if we want to have our birthright, then it's also our birth responsibility to be good stewards. And right now it just sounds like you're asking, like, let's just slow down the conversation. And I think that is the most the nicest thing you could ask for, and extremely reasonable if that's
Reasonable.
not a total self-contradiction. Okay, so yeah, last sorry, did I cut you off? Did you finish?
That was it. No, that was great. It was great to see you, man.
Yeah, you too.
I look forward to hanging out next time we hang out.
Yeah, let me know when you're back, and if I'm ever in DC again, I'll be sure to let you know too. All right.
Excellent.
Cool. So that was another episode of the Guam Guy Show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. There is a call to action in this one. So again, I'll have a link or maybe multiple links in the caption and description of these, so you know exactly where to go. Maybe I'll throw in a couple of resources for you to read up and listen more if you like. If you like the show and you like what I do, my other projects, if you want to support, you can check me out on www.patreon.com/theguamguy. If you wanted to help me out with anything. Did you have any links you wanted to shout out for yourself, Angelo?
I'll share the Friends of the Mariana Trench have a resource guide for this whole thing. And it's gotten very long because a lot of things have been said, but it links to videos and reports and articles that talk about this specifically. And if you really want to do a deep dive, this is a document that kind of has all that you need.
Okay, so I'll throw that in the show notes as well. So yeah, thanks for your time, Angelo, and thanks everybody for watching and for listening. See you on the next one.